spent in a miserable way.
U.S. News as Trump demands his wall. Lawmakers plead for space to negotiate. The New York Times. Washington. New President Trump proclaimed on Thursday that without funding for his wall at the southwestern border, the panel of lawmakers negotiating a broad compromise on border security would be wasting their time, issuing what appeared to be an ultimatum even as lawmakers pleaded for a chance to reach a deal that would head off another shutdown. Without a wall, it does work, Mr. Trump told reporters in the Oval Office. I am not saying, if you didn't have a wall, he added, that they're all just wasting their time. And on Thursday, the president indicated that he was prepared to move forward without lawmakers, saying that he had set the stage for doing what I am going to do. He declined to read with President Trump. The comments came as 17 House and Senate lawmakers from both parties before February the 15th, when much of the government again runs out of money. Republican leaders, I think it would be more worthwhile and effective if the president would allow some space for these negotiations to occur and not be doing commentary at this point, said Senator Susan Collins, Republican of Maine. Democrats offered their own opinions on Thursday in her weekly news conference. Speaker Nancy Pelosi told reporters that there's not going to be any war money in a final bill for House Democrats, but it was the president's commentary throughout the day on Thursday, on Twitter and in the Oval Office, that prompted several lawmakers to plead for him to tone down his messaging. Senator Richard C. Shelby of Alabama, the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee and a member of the negotiating group, known as a conference committee, asserted that without outside reaction not just from the president, but other outside forces a solution could be reached within days. If the Speaker, the President and everybody, the leaders of our parties in the Senate, would let us, the appropriators, do our job, we could do this, Mr. Shelby said. Democrats released formal details on Thursday of outlining nearly $56 billion in spending for the Department of Homeland Security without any mention of walls or fencing. The proposal also, Ms. Pelosi signaled that she would be open to allocating money for roads, ports of entry and infrastructure and technology at the southwestern border, all things that she said were part of the negotiation. They have to choose the best way to use the money, she said of the committee, adding that a bipartisan consensus could hopefully be reached without outside interference. But the president, who between hard-edged demands for border wall funding and a softer tone on alternatives to a wall, returned to his hardline posture that a wall had to be included in a final bill. He repeated the tone of Mr. Trump's remarks, coupled with a string of morning tweets, prompted a mixture of bewilderment and concern among lawmakers trying to reach a deal but unsure of what the president will sign. I do think the president's tweet underscores the single most important question as to whether this negotiation can be successful, how free the Republicans are to negotiating in good faith and to what extent they can proceed to do that, said Representative David E. Price, Democrat of North Carolina and a member of the negotiating committee.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.